When I first heard of the being profile, it was through a webinar that the ICF, the International Coach Federation, was running. And this coach was talking about this profiling tool that was based on ontology, and my ears immediately pricked up because I hadn't heard of something like that before. I went into this program expecting to learn about, the ways you measure a profile, but really it was based in a whole lot of philosophy and knowledge that was so robust and complex, but also so clear around what it was there to do and what it was there to measure.
So, the being profile, what is it? People ask me, tell me more about the being profile. Well, the first question I ask them is, what is being? A way of being is a combination of different things. It's thoughts and thought processes, it's physical sensations, it's feelings and emotions, it's my state of mind or mood. It's a combination of all of these things that actually is my way of being.
If you're someone who's interested in performance or producing consistent results in any area of life, then the being profile is something that I would recommend that you look at. What the being profile does, it distinguishes what are the various ways of being that you are on a day-to-day basis, and how those different ways of being impact the results that you produce. Similar to a blood test, every profile result is different. It's unique to you. In actual fact, I don't think I've ever come across two profiles that are even closely matched. When we get the results back, then we're in a position that we can actually sit down with you and go through the results with you, so then you can identify what are the key areas that if I worked on those areas, that would make a real difference on my performance.
There is a way of being that is associated with every result. The results that you are enjoying in your life now are a result of the way you are being. The results that you want out of life are the result of another way of being, and there is a gap between the two. That describes the journey from where you are now to where you want to be. The being profile is an amazing tool to give you a very clear perspective of the health of your relationship with various set aspects of ways of being, so you can get a very clear picture of where your starting point is.
The first time I heard about the being profile was when I was sitting on the Everyman board, and our CEO came to us and said, we have been through a process throughout our leadership team, all of our team, and staff, and myself. So I took part in undergoing the being profile, and then we had a workshop. And during the workshop, we addressed some of the issues that we had, like, are we as a board being too polite with each other? Are we communicating in a way that enables us to make decisions for the organisation effectively and to be authentic with each other and aligned?
I'm working with a current client who has really started to unpack some labels that they were given as a child around being shy, and that was just who they were. So, therefore they had permission to do so many things. And it's been really interesting, a journey that we've gone on together over the last few months with him in actually starting to identify what is shy, and is shy something that, you actually believe you are, and is that who you're being, or is that just a backpack of a label of things that people have given you? And it's been really interesting for him to see the shift in not having to take on labels and actually be able to show up as just who he is.
When I first completed my being profile, I honestly thought, oh my God, this is a lot of questions. But then when I got my results back, it opened a new world. I had more awareness of myself, and I thought there's no way out of these questions that they'd get me, but it did. The results were spot on.
I guess I had tried different approaches in the way that I was trying to shape and frame my life, maybe through self-help books, personal leadership. I even studied personal leadership for 3 years. And I had still kind of never gotten to the underlying ways of being. For me to be coached and have that trust with my coach for the last 2 years specifically in getting to those underlying ways of thinking and being, I think really released something for me.
Often people get quite exhausted trying to make a difference and not really understanding where they're not being effective. And I was one of those people as well. I didn't quite understand what was in the way of my effectiveness. Prior to doing the being profile, I had quite an extensive period of ontological training. So I didn't need to be convinced about the value of ontological coaching, and I got to see that very clearly looking at my being profile and working with a coach, and I knew I could make a difference to people in the same way. So I didn't have any hesitation about doing the training. I embraced the opportunity and I have not been disappointed.
When I was first introduced to the being profile was when we were doing some training with the management team of another organisation, and it really gave us what I was looking for, which was a way of having a conversation with members of the management team of another organisation as well as mine about taking on what it was that we were responsible for and having a sense of ownership. So instead of having stories that were all about how busy we were and how stressed we were, giving us conversations where we started to get excited about the possibility of partnership.
When you first see the being profile, you might be tempted to think, oh, this is just another personality profile or behaviour profile. And I've worked with lots of those. I've worked with capability frameworks in government. I've run assessment centres. I've done personality profiles and values profiles and behavioural profiles. And the being profile is actually different. For
a lot of people that I've introduced the being profile to, their initial reactions often are things like, oh, this is just another psychometric tool. I've done a lot of these in the past. And I always say to them, well, this is an ontological tool. It's a brand new tool. So it's very different from anything else that you might have done. Because it works in the area of ontology, this is something that you may not necessarily have ever looked at before.
So what coaching looks like with the being profile is that we work from the strengths of the being profile, and we look at where we need to improve the aspects of health, and we use that as a guide and as a tool. So what coaching looks like without the being profile, it can be a stab in the dark.
One of the key distinctions out of the being framework process was the description of responsibility, where responsibility isn't so much a burden but a worldview. It's a much more powerful way of looking at situations and looking at dynamics. Now that was really taken on by our team. To the extent that pointless gossip or complaining, there is so much less of that happening, and if it does happen, it's picked up pretty quickly. It saves us a lot of time.
My name is CARR, and I am a coach and specialising in leadership coaching. Before I did the being profile, I could really see a pattern, which is an uncomfortable pattern, but I could see that I'd been completely preoccupied with myself. It was about how I was, my experience, what I was or wasn't. And now I'm really captured by the expression of humility around thinking of myself less.
The main difference in using the being profile I have experienced as a professional coach is that it gives a practical direction. It's like a map of your way of being. What's really great about the being profile is it gives you a complete holistic snapshot. How is your world actually evolving around you? And also, how is your world shaped by your own way of being?
Once we filled out the being profile and we got to see that things weren't as scary as what we assumed it was going to be, we just got to see the areas that we were effective in and we weren't effective in, and things weren't looked at in a negative way. They were in more of a positive way of things that we might just need to look at to work through.
So for many years I've been trying to measure some sort of ways of being, including self-compassion, forgiveness, through validated instruments. But what's important with the being profile is it integrates it in one place. It kind of brings it all together.
Doing my own being profile, it started to open up different lenses for me. Going through the distinctions of each of the ways of being was allowing me to see where I was showing up in the world and where I wasn't. It brought conversation to the table of where, for example, we may be available for contribution, or we may feel we were available for contribution. I became aware that I would give contribution but wasn't willing to receive other people's input. So when we could talk about that at the table, then that became something that we could move and make more workable.
So some of the outcomes that I've seen in my team is there's a lot more trust, there's a lot more shared language where it's so much easier to get onto the same page with everyone. It's created an environment where everyone's really open with each other now and are willing to embrace any of the changes that we're trying to make in the organisation.
Yeah, we've seen the impact of different people's relationship to parts of the being profile. We've seen it within their vulnerability, within their courage, to their relationship to fear, reliability, all sorts of different areas that they just, at that point in time, have a relationship with those different ways that just can cause them to not really be able to perform at the highest level. We've seen how that does impact our business.
So I was introduced to the Being Profile as a service manager in an educational setting. What really resonated with me about the Being Profile is its ability to be able to unconceal or unfold areas of my life that I potentially may not be present to or may not have an awareness of.
I was sitting with my client in his office discussing his new venture that he had been dabbling with for a couple of years, and he raised a question around another opportunity and stopped himself and asked, am I being distracted? So that was a perfect opportunity to stop and ask what was going on and dig a bit deeper. We had a look at his Being Profile and found a relationship between commitment and his fear. And as we unpacked what was going on in the fear, he realized that the thing that he truly wanted was to take on this new venture. Through discussing what was going on, financial and other matters, he made the decision that enough was enough and he would commit fully to his new venture, and that would allow him the freedom and the time to drop all these other, shiny objects and fanciful ideas that were just getting in his way.
So when I tell people about the Being Profile, I explain to them that it's like taking a health test. Whether it be in the corporate world, whether it be in relationships with husbands and wives, with partners, with siblings, with your parents, it will always boil down to how you're performing in those areas.
When I initially did my Being Profile, one of the distinctions that stood out for me was confidence. I already knew that was going to be probably one of my most unhealthiest scores. I guess I never thought that I had it within me to be able to move up in the organisation and have that confidence to be able to do the job that I'm doing now. Doing the one-on-one coaching with my Thrive coach and really focusing on the confidence, I've just gained so much more confidence, and it's helped so much in my job.
The one thing that really surprised me with the Being Profile was the precision. People do use it almost like a diagnostic tool, and it tells you precisely where to look. So you don't really have to spend so much time finding the areas that a coachee wants to be coached on.
My favourite part of the Being Profile is the aha moments. May it be with myself as a coach or my coachee, discovering things that you weren't aware of, that you never thought before.
For me, Being Profile is about getting results faster. And I'm all about efficiency, not only in my own life, but also for my clients. Why should they come and spend 10 sessions with me when we could get to the heart of the issue within 1, maybe 2 sessions, because we have the results right there on a piece of paper.
One of the best components that I feel about the Being Profile is it gave me a map. It gave me a map of who I am right now.
I think the way that the being profile interacts with, and I'll take our client base, is that it does allow us to see things in a different way, to view a human being and start to understand what it is that's going on for them.
Sometimes I can drain myself in a lot of doings, and I just find that I'm like a working bee but with nowhere to go. And having been exposed to ontology and look at who I'm being or the context that's driving my behavior, it allows me to, pause, stop, rethink, plan, and actually make my actions a lot more meaningful than just a hamster in a wheel churning through life.
What the being profile allows us to do is look at who you're being now and map where you want to go and how to get there, but not from what to do, but from who you're being.
The way I like to describe what the being profile is, it's the fly on the walls perspective of you and your life. And you really get the opportunity to get related to who you're being. When I heard that you could measure forgiveness and love, most people would think, why is that important in business? But you can see that it is.
You may be an individual that's just interested in your personal performance. You may be a manager or somebody who leads teams. You could be a business owner. No matter where you are, who you are, if you're interested in improving performance or taking your performance to the next level or your team's performance to the next level, then the being profile is definitely something that you should do. How easy is it to do it? Go to beingprofile.com, go to our website, beingprofile.com, and actually register your interest. And we will actually put you in communication with either a being profile practitioner who is close to you or someone who will be in contact with you and actually guide you through the process. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes to actually complete the profile. We get those results from you instantly, and then someone will be in communication with you to actually lead you through the interpretation process. The debrief typically will take you less than 2 hours. And if we're working, we're talking about working with you on a team, we can actually talk you through how it would apply to you, your organization, your team, or your business as well.